This week's Torah portion continues the conversation that Moses has with the Jewish people prior to his passing. And he continues to explain to them what will be necessary for them to be able to make their final journey into the land of Israel, acquire the land of Israel, and to stay there with serenity and peace. And there are two real items, dimensions sort of to the acquirement of the land. One is to reach an agreement with those that wish to stay, or if they don't, to be prepared to wage war with them so that they can conquer the land that God promised them. And the other item is that God is warning them that you may expel the people, those that stay will stay, but you have to be cautious that you do not learn from their ways. That everything that you promised me at Sinai, that you would worship one God, not to learn from their idol worshiping practices, not to believe in what they believe in, so that ultimately you may stray from the path of Torah, righteousness, and God's will. And Moses tells them, really, when it comes to the first item, about really figuring out whether the nations are going to leave on their own accord, whether they'll stay peacefully, really, Moses tells them, you don't have to worry about that. God promised you the land. And if he promised you the land, he's going to make it work out. The second item, you're falling prey to the influence of the nations that live there, that God's not so certain. He feels confident that you could, but certainly not certain that we will. And that's up to the Jewish people to ensure that we behave the way that we were meant to. It's interesting, I saw a conversation that Eli Wiesel had with a reporter. And he said that you would think that after the Second World War, after the Holocaust, that we would never again have to worry about anti-Semitism. That we would never again have to worry about people being evil to each other. And he realized that that's not true. That as educated as people are, and as educated as the Germans were, what shocked him the most is that when he learned about the lives of those that did the actual killings, he came to realize that they were all university educated, they all held degrees, and yet they were able to do the most atrocious of things. So God and Moses is telling the Jewish people, don't worry about stuff that ultimately is not really up to you. What you should worry is about your own behavior. Because no matter how many lessons you've had in life, no matter living under the conditions of the Egyptians and thinking, I will never be like them, then going and being engaged with nations of the world that didn't treat you nicely, and you thought I would never learn from them. God says, ultimately, that's where you need the additional attention to make sure that you behave in a divine way. And I think the lesson is an important one, because in today's day and age, with everything that's happening around Israel and the Jewish people at large all over the world, we've come to learn one thing, that the more that we've advanced as a human species, the more that we think that we're the cleverest nation or generation that has ever been, people can still continue to repeat the same mistakes and behavior that dehumanizes, that destroys, that hurts and harms people. And yet, we haven't learned our lesson. So Jews today, the main thing for them is, let God do his job. Our job is not to rely on anyone else. Is to realize that we have to do what's good for us, what God wants from us. And when we do that, everything else will fall into place. Have a great Shabbos.